Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Retire Well, brought to you by the team of Citizen Advisory Group. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and joining me in the studio is the owner, Kevin Bucher, and financial advisor, Pete Samanok. We've got a great show for you today. We're going to be diving deeply into a piece of legislation that was recently passed that's going to impact millions of Americans. You're going to want to stay with us to see what it might mean for you. Kevin, Pete, always a joy to be here with both of you. How are you this week?
Doing great. Great to be here. Feels like it's been a little while since we've been out, so great to be here and get some fresh new content, especially when there's some new legislation passed that really affects a lot of individuals.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Super up to date, relevant show today, so we're really excited to do it.
Yes, I'm excited too. And one of the things I've always really appreciated about you and the team of Citizen Advisory Group is your commitment to providing solid financial education, staying up to date with all the different changes that are occurring. We know that stuff is always changing, right? That's the constant here with retirement planning. You have to stay on top of it.
Yeah, and it's a big part of financial planning, and why we're going to do a show kind of later on this month and at some point about why it's important to have a financial advisor and a planner that's committed to these things.
For sure.
But major legislation just passed, and it's really some of the biggest legislation we've had in quite some time, I would say, in our industry, and most people aren't even aware of it. I don't know why. It's just not one of the major things that was talked about in the media, and it was surrounding the election and you know,
and
most things.
There was a lot of other stuff going
a lot of
on,
other
right?
things going around that kind of watered it down.
Right.
But it's very major legislation, and that's why we're going to dig into it today. It's very relevant. We're excited.
And of course, what we are talking about is the Social Security Fairness Act. That's what was passed back on January 5th of 2025. And so before we get into what this legislation, what it's changed, let's start by who is affected by the Social Security Fairness Act.
I'm taking this one? Yeah. So most people that would know that if you have a government pension, and especially in the state of Ohio where we live, in other states, if you have a government pension, something like Ohio Police and Fire, State Teachers Retirement System, OPERS, or SERS, State Employee Retirement System, our School Employee Retirement System rather, you are affected by what's called the government pension offset or the windfall elimination provision, where you don't get to keep all of your Social Security, right? And that's been one of the biggest puzzle pieces that people with government pensions and some of those public pensions have to figure out is how much Social Security am I actually going to be getting?
Right.
And that's been a very tough mystery to solve for people, but with the passing of the Social Security Fairness Act, they've actually now repealed that. So people that do have a Social Security benefit as well as a government pension offset, or formerly government pension offset or windfall elimination provision, are going to be able to get all of their Social Security benefit. And
I'm curious, is this going to affect only people who haven't yet started claiming, or does it go into effect for folks like, I think of my own father who retired after 40 years of government service? Will it impact him as well?
Yeah, so it affects all of the above. Okay. And the way they passed the law, it's actually going to be retroactively backdated to January 1st of 2024. So they're actually going to be backdating benefits and awarding some lump sum payments to individuals who are already collecting their benefit. So as Pete mentioned, it affects the individuals who are in what we would call non-covered Social Security positions, like school teachers, police and fire, public employees. But it really affects everybody out there that's going to be drawing Social Security at some point. So one of the immediate things that we're already starting to see, and the Social Security Administration's already come out very publicly and stated, is that with all these new changes in benefits, that there's going to be slow processing times.
Right.
It's going to take them a while to get through all of this and make all these changes. So for those of you that are looking to file for your own Social Security in the next few months or even sometime this year, you should expect the processing times to be a little bit slower and maybe get that application in a little bit sooner than what you were thinking.
Get ahead of the game, right?
Yeah, so that's level one of how I think it affects all of us.
Okay.
The other thing, we've had shows before where we talked about legislative risk.
Yes.
And so, there's a risk that there's policy changes, and this one actually is a favorable change in a lot of ways, especially to those directly impacted. But it is creating an additional benefit pool that was not originally scheduled to be paid. So there's more money that's going to have to come out of Social Security. So how might that affect all of us? And Social Security, I don't think it's a mystery. There's already already some solvency issues with the Social Security program. So now we're adding in these additional benefits. So according to the Social Security Administration, they're projecting that the shortfall is now going to be moved up about 6 months.
Which is interesting. So I'm sure a lot of viewers watching are going, wait, we already know that there's a solvency issue with Social Security. And on one hand, it's really good news to know that certain folks are now going to be getting more from Social Security. But I can imagine folks are going, wait a second, how does this not compound the problems we're already facing?
And the biggest thing I kind of want to point out is, like, it is a positive thing. This is a positive thing for the majority of our clients and people. You know, this affects a lot of people. It actually affects me personally. My wife has a government pension. It affects my parents. It affects my mother-in-law. It affects about, I would say, like 40% of clients that I'm seeing right now. It's just big in our area, in Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. There's just a lot of public pension jobs, and it affects a lot of people. So
this is good news.
It is good
right?
news. Yeah, that's what I want to say ultimately, is it is good news, right?
Well, I'm curious, with so many people who are going to be affected by this change and by this legislation, can you provide some historical information on why they decided to make this change? Because this has been in place for over 30 years at this point, right?
Yeah, so when you look at the logic of the adjustments that were made, it's very common that we see an individual, whether it was a school teacher or a police officer, where part of their work history, they did spend some time working in the Social Security system. So they spent enough time in that system to where they qualified to receive a benefit. So prior to this law being passed, they had an adjustment then, and their benefit was reduced because of these provisions that we're going to talk about in more detail, right? So a lot of times that was looked at as, well, that's not fair. I'm not getting the benefit that I worked to receive. And I understand that concept, and I understand that point. So that's why lawmakers address this. It was a little bit of a surprise, maybe, because there's been a push to do this for 15 to 20 years. And just all of a sudden, in a few short weeks process, it passed the House, it passed the Senate, and then it was signed into law on January 5th, like you said.
Yeah, and it proved us kind of wrong, because we kind of said we didn't think it was ever going to pass, and it was just kind of a pipe dream almost for a lot of people, and just something that they've been talking about. But yeah, it passed pretty quickly, and now that's where you have to know, how do you react? When do you react? What do we do? How does it affect me? It's changed a lot on the retirement planning landscape that people don't know how it affects them. So.
And I think one really important point to make is this does affect everyone in some fashion. So if you're not in this group that we've kind of identified who's directly impacted, I would still encourage you to stay tuned in for the rest of this show, because we're going to be diving into a little more detail to some of the specific types of Social Security benefits. And there's really just there's not a lot of awareness about how Social Security retirement benefits, Social Security spousal benefits, and Social Security survivor benefits play in together. So this show is going to benefit everyone as we go through that.
For sure. And as we've done other shows on Social Security, as we know, we could spend hours at this desk talking, right? There's so much to know. But really, this is why folks can benefit from coming in and meeting with you and the team of Citizen Advisory Group to get their unique questions answered. There's really no substitute for sitting down in the financial planning environment to see how all these different changes could potentially impact you or your loved ones.
Yeah, so for callers from today's show, we are actually offering a complimentary appointment where you come in and we answer your specific questions about Social Security. But just as importantly, you're going to walk away with this Social Security guide that is going to go through some of these different types of benefits and programs that you may be eligible from Social Security that you were not aware of. So really important guide. Take advantage of this opportunity to give our office a call and schedule your complimentary appointment to get this guide in your hands so you can start to make informed decisions about how to take your Social Security.
Kevin, Pete, thank you. I'm excited to continue this conversation. I know we've got a lot more of good stuff to get to for our viewers today, but we encourage you to reach out and schedule that complimentary appointment. You can do so in one of two ways. Simply pick up the phone and call the number you see on the bottom of your screen, 866-630-1675, Or if you'd rather connect online, if you simply pull out your smartphone, you can open up the camera app, just click and scan the QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Citizen Advisory Group will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. And as Kevin just shared, you're also going to be able to walk away with your very own complimentary Social Security guide. Stay with us. We'll be back with more right after this.
As a youth, I spent my summer months on the construction sites with my family. I think I learned early on the value of hard work. Ultimately, though, I was led into the financial services world where I joined my brother Jeff.
You know, I think many people think that the financial piece is just so prevalent and the most important component, but there's just more to it than that. It's about the experiences, it's about the relationships, it's about the life that our clients are living.
They've got things set up so that the biggest decisions I have to make are whether to use a 9-iron or a pitching wedge, and what is my cocktail this evening.
It's our family coming together with your family. It's your financial pieces coming together to have a coordinated plan. It's our community coming together to keep that social connection.
I like the family atmosphere that they have. I think they treat everybody like they're part of the family of Citizen Advisory Group. I just love that they take care of us.
I think we pride ourselves on the comprehensive services that we offer, which starts with the holistic financial planning. That retirement checkpoint view is going to be a full review across the areas of investments, your income, taxes, insurance, and your legacy and estate plan to make sure that you have a coordinated plan and it is tailored to you, the individual.
We build all of this together to get the most out of your retirement so that you can have the retirement that you've always dreamt of.
Welcome back to Retire Well. I'm Kristin Oakley here with both Kevin and Pete from Citizen Advisory Group. We're so glad you're tuning in today. If you're just joining us, we are spending today talking in depth about the new Social Security Fairness Act and what it might mean for you and your loved ones. So we encourage you to stick with us because, again, this is a very important piece of legislation that was recently passed. As we said earlier in the show, it was kind of glossed over in the media. It wasn't really talked about. There was a lot of other things going on in the world when this got passed. I know it is very interesting, but we have to talk about it. And historically, there's been two Social Security provisions that affected a lot of people. And I want you, when you first start answering this, to re-presence for our viewers, everyone who is directly affected by this, the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. So let's break those two things down and just remind our viewers who's impacted the most.
Yes. So who's impacted is going to be individuals who have what we call non-covered employment. Basically, that means that you are in a career where you are not paying the Social Security portion of the FICA taxes. You are paying into some type of a retirement system, whether that's in Ohio, the State Teachers Retirement System, STRS, the Police and Fire Pension of of the Ohio Police and Fire, public employees under OPERS or school employees under SERS. They don't actually pay the Social Security FICA taxes. Mm-hmm. So that created an adjustment to how their benefits under Social Security are calculated. So really to understand that, we have to do a deep dive into what is a retirement benefit, what is a spousal benefit, and what is a survivor benefit. Okay. So bear with me a little bit while we get into the weeds a little bit on those different types of benefits. I think I told you on a previous show we did, on a previous TV segment that I did on my title that they aired on the show. I was the vice president of our company at that time, and they put that I was the vice president of Social Security.
Oh dear.
So
I had forgotten that.
Yeah, I am not the vice president
from the past.
Yes. So I am not the vice president of Social Security, but Social Security is something that I have spent a lot of time doing training and research on. So in our office, I'm often seen as the go-to person to get some of this information. So I'm going to
take. You have a huge team, but that's one of your specialties, if you will,
so
right?
I'm going to take the lead on kind of talking about retirement benefits, spousal benefit, and survivor benefits, and how the WEP and GPO. So we're going to start calling the windfall elimination provision the WEP and the government pension offset the GPO.
All right.
So retirement benefits, first and foremost, that's based on your work history. It has nothing to do with a spouse or anyone else. It's based on your work history and you paying into Social Security. Once you have made 40 quarters or 40 credits of coverage, which you can earn 4 per year, so it takes 10 years worth of earnings, you will be eligible for a retirement benefit.
Yes.
Okay, so now you're eligible.
Yep.
Well, how do they calculate it? Sorry, we're getting into the weeds.
No, you know, I used to present on this, and I think you're doing a great job of breaking it down. There's some key things that folks need to understand.
Yes, you are an expert in this, and you could be doing this segment yourself. But so once you got your 40 credits, well, now they're going to run you through the formula to determine how much your benefit is going to be. They base that formula on your highest 35 years of earnings. So they pull your highest 35 years of index-adjusted earnings. So there isn't an adjustment for inflation to your 35-year earnings. But they take that 35-year history and break that into your average month. So 35 years worth of earnings, what did you average per month?
Right, your 35 highest earning years,
Correct.
That's critical for some folks, right? And then that average indexed monthly earning amount.
And as you know, not everyone has 35 years worth of earnings.
Right.
But they're still pulling your highest 35 years, so you might have some zeros baked into that calculation. Okay?
Yep.
So once they know what your average month is, they take that average month and they run it through these 3 different bend points to determine what your full Social Security amount is. So you get 90% of the first chunk of your average. If your average is above that first tier, you then get 32% of the next tier. And if your average is above that tier, you then get 15%. And they add that all together, and that's how they determine your benefit.
It's very complicated.
Correct. It's very complicated. But for individuals who had what we call these non-covered positions where they were not paying into Social Security, they had an adjustment to their formula. So instead of getting 90% of that first bend point, they could get as low as 40% of that first bend point. And for many people, that resulted in a reduction of their benefits for by as much as $500 per month.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So because they were not always paying into Social Security, their benefits were reduced.
And just real quick, because I think this will illustrate it, I think of my own parents, right? So my father worked for the government for 40 years. My mother was a public school teacher, but she was in a state where she did pay into Social Security. But what's interesting is she barely worked because she stayed home with us, but her Social Security check before the Fairness Act is higher than my dad's, who worked for the government for 40 years because of these provisions.
Yeah, so the good news about this Fairness Act, what it did is it has completely repealed that windfall elimination provision.
Yeah.
So folks are no longer subject to that reduction. They're going to get the full amount that they were going to get based on that formula.
That's good news, yeah.
Now, I really want to get into the spousal benefits. Yep. I know that I spent too long on the retirement.
It's all good. No, we need to build that
really
foundation. It is very important
that we get to this. I'll try to do this much quicker. So basically, my spousal and survivor benefits have nothing to do with what I did for work. It's based on my spouse's work history, and in a lot of cases, ex-spouse. So I don't have to be currently married. And I'm basically entitled to 50% of their full age amount at my full age. So if my spouse's Social Security is $3,000 a month, I'm entitled to $1,500 as the spouse. Now I can't collect multiple benefits at the same time, but I might be eligible for as much as $1,500.
Yep.
But for those folks that are subject to the government pension offset, they were getting a reduction to that by 2/3 of their pension. So for most folks, it actually eliminated the spousal, in some cases, the survivor benefit all the way together. Good news, Social Security Fairness Act repealed the government pension offset, opening up spousal and survivor benefits for thousands to millions of households.
Yeah.
And after the break, we are going to get into some real life examples of what this means.
Yeah, and that's so important to help illustrate, to really play out. You know, we know that already Social Security can be so complex and confusing, not just on your own benefit, but on these spousal and survivor benefits. But this is going to impact millions of Americans. And as you said, Pete, this is a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. And, you know, also what we wanted to talk about is like how is Kevin talked about it. How is Social Security going to keep up? And the unfortunate part of this, shortly after this law was passed, which went through very rapidly and quickly, and again, not good or bad, it just is what it is.
Did, right?
And we kind of have to react to the best we can. But Social Security came out and said, unfortunately, with the passing of the bill, what they didn't do in that bill was put money into that legislation to actually figure out how are we going to fund this so Social Security and their employees can keep up with the backlog, right? How are they going to figure this out? And what they've said is that it might take up to 12 months, up to a year for them to actually figure out how they're going to start paying people. Yeah. So the story there is, before we get into really some specific details in the next segment, like Kevin talked about, is what do we do right now is we just kind of have to sit tight.
Yeah, for
we
sure.
have to sit tight
Stand
and just
by.
kind of stay. I mean, that's what we're telling clients right now is we actually don't know what it's going to look like. Do we have to apply for it? Do we have to let them know? It's just kind of a standby and sit tight situation.
But regardless, anyone who's watching, whether they are directly impacted by this, maybe they don't know if they are directly impacted or not, every single person needs help planning their Social Security. It is a huge piece of your overall financial plan, and this is why you all are offering this complimentary Social Security guide when folks come in to meet with you for the first time and receive their complimentary written financial plan. Why don't you share in a little more depth everything that goes into this guide?
Well, it's going to do what I tried to do in 5 minutes. It's going to put that into words that you can read at your own pace. It's going to explain to you the different type of benefits that you might be eligible for your lifetime. And that's really important because there's just a lot of confusion and misunderstanding around how these different benefit types play together and how you can really optimize your situation, which is what the Social Security planning is all about.
Wonderful. Kevin, Pete, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, we encourage you to take advantage of this incredible opportunity. You can do so in two ways. Either call the number on the bottom of your screen, 866-630-1675, or you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
Do you own an annuity? Are you aware of what type of annuity you own? For years, annuities have been considered a cornerstone of retirement planning, but they're not all created equal. And your current annuity might not be serving your retirement goals. The good news is rising interest rates could mean better guarantees and better benefits for your annuity. If your annuity is not working for you, would you like to know sooner than later? Call now for your complimentary annuity review. As individuals, we strive for better. From a better house to a better career, to a better life for our kids. But when it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? More income? A flexible lifestyle? Better solutions? A better retirement begins with a plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Did you ever think your own retirement would be shared with our government? It's true. Your 401k, IRA, pension, or similar retirement accounts are in partnership with Uncle Sam. Simply put, they want their tax dollars and you have them. With our latest calculator, you can plug in your own numbers while sitting at home. To see what your tax liability to Uncle Sam projects to be, scan the QR code or go to mytaxbilltest.com.
Welcome back to Retire Well, where today we are discussing the Social Security Fairness Act and what it could mean for you. We know we've covered a lot of information. We were actually just laughing during the break. I mean, there's so much to get into here, and really, we just have to be able to give an overview on today's show. The best way that someone's going to find out what this means for them is by coming in and sitting down and meeting with you all. But I would love for you, in the time we have left today, we've talked a lot about the rules, who this affects, but just really explain some real-life examples of how this is going to play out for people that you work with.
And everyone's situation is so unique.
Yes.
Like, it's just every situation is different. So we have to learn how to navigate it. How does it affect us? Do you want to kind of start with one of your examples?
Yeah, so I just had this appointment last week with some existing clients. So the wife was a career teacher, so she does not have enough years under her own Social Security record to qualify for a Social Security benefit. So she was aware that this legislation had passed, but she didn't know what that meant to her, right? So, and I think there's a lot of people that fall into this same category, which is why I want to use this example. So her husband was a lifelong Social Security worker, and he was drawing a nice benefit from Social Security because he was a nice earner, and he waited to take his benefits till a little later in life. But at his full age, his Social Security was $3,600 a month, $3,600.
Okay.
So under normal circumstances, the spouse would be eligible to collect half of that at their full age, so $1,800 a month.
Right.
So the problem is she was a lifelong school teacher. She doesn't have her own Social Security. So her spousal benefit, which should be $1,800, was reduced by 2/3 of her pension, Well, a fully vested teacher in the state of Ohio, their pension could be as high as $60,000, $70,000. So we have to take 2/3 of that $60,000. I'm going to use 60 because I can do the math of that.
Yeah.
So $60,000, 2/3 of that is $40,000 a year.
Right.
So when you take her $1,800 a month that she was eligible for as a
through
spouse,
Social Security from spousal benefits,
subtract $40,000 from that, there was nothing left.
Right.
So the Social Security Fairness Act has repealed that government pension offset. She immediately becomes eligible at her full age, which is actually 2 months from now, at her full age to the full $1,800.
Yep.
So she went from getting no spousal benefits from Social Security to $1,800 a month.
Yeah.
And that's a game changer right there. That changes
sure.
everything. It changes your portfolio strategy.
Yes.
When we're going to file for Social Security, it changes your tax strategy. All these things are so interconnected.
They really
and
are.
that's what's like the fun part to us, and it's unique. It changes the whole plan.
I know. I can see your excitement. You geek out over this, right? Because there's so much that goes into it. But it's. I think for folks to understand too, the spousal benefit piece and especially the survivor benefit piece is huge, because for married couples, once one spouse passes away, you lose one of the two Social Security checks, but you get to keep the higher of the two. This could change the plan for folks.
Yeah. So even that same example. So while they were both living, her spousal benefit was completely eroded by the government pension offset.
Yep.
Well, the survivor benefit that she was entitled to was also reduced by $40,000, and again, that has now been repealed.
Right.
So she now, as the surviving spouse, if she is the survivor, is going to be able to step into the full Social Security benefit of her spouse.
The $3,600, right?
And that was one of their main areas of concern is what the survivor income looked like.
Survivor income, right?
And this really just totally is a game changer for them and many other individuals who are out there who are subject to these provisions who are no longer subject to them.
Right. Yep. Because I think of my own parents as I use that example. If my dad were to pass away as it stood right now before the Social Security Fairness Act, she would lose 40% of her income.
Right. She's taking a huge hit.
Exactly.
Yeah. And another just quick example, I'm going to try to get through this very quickly, is I have a woman that she's been widowed for 7 years. So she was married for 20 some years. She was widowed. She actually has a full OPERS pension, so from Ohio Public Employee Retirement System, drawing a full benefit. And she is actually remarried, but she remarried past the age of 60. So when I met with her and we were kind of going through her numbers, she's actually now eligible to get her deceased spouse, her widowed spouse, is his full Social Security benefit. So she was getting zero from that.
Right.
And now she's going to get about $2,400 a month.
This is going to be a game changer for so many folks. I'm so glad y'all are talking about this. And again, really what folks need to do is come in and meet with you, and they'll get this complimentary guide as well.
Yes, there's so much to it. You owe it to yourself to pick up the phone and call and get your hands on this guide and talk through your Social Security options with someone who understands your benefit options.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much, and thank you for joining us. We encourage you to reach out. The team of Citizen Advisory Group is here for you. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We'll see you next time here on Retire Well.